So here we are at the fourth video in the series, and we are this far in making our little Irish lace needlepoint buttercup. We have one petal done, the stem, 2 leaves done, all in cord stitch with a nice diamond pattern in it. And now we're ready to continue on, and we're going to fill in other areas. And where we'll start is with Brussels point, and Brussels stitch is the first stitch that we're going to do here in the center, as you can see on the completed one. Now I've rethought the panel on the right, so it's Brussels stitch on the center. These little pops we can do afterwards, but the Brussels stitch was covered back in the second video in the Irish Lace series. So if you need to refresh yourself on that, we'll be using that a lot, because we'll use it here on this panel, but we'll use it here as well. But I have it, I've rethought that, as I say, and what we're going to do is do it upside down on this panel, because I did say I'd show you some tips and tricks, and one of the tips is that with these stitches you can go different directions with them. So Brussels stitch is one of the stitches that looks really nice upside down. So when I get to that stage, I'll show it to you and show you what to do next. So fill this one in with your Brussels stitch, and this one we're going to turn around, do Brussels stitch in that panel upside down. Here's a Brussels stitch heading left. As you can see, the threads are under the needle facing to the left. For the Brussels stitch going to the right, from working from left to right of the row, that would be under the needle facing to the right. Just a little reminder of how we do the Brussels stitch. But what I really wanted to show you was this weird piece of paper. What's this about? This is another little trick that you could use as you go along if you want. I didn't want to introduce this too early, because it's trouble enough just seeing all the stitches to get them visually the right size when you start doing lace. But as you get more used to it, you can, if you like, put a little piece of just loose paper with a little hole in it over your work and keep moving it as you go along, so that when your fingers are touching the work, they're not going near all the other bits, getting grease from your fingers on it. So that's something you might like to try as you get a little better with your skills. And the paper, like when you hold things different ways, you can reposition the paper and everything and just look at the little window of the piece you're working on at the moment and keep moving it. You don't have to pin it down or anything. But obviously, you know, as a beginner, you might like to see the whole panel you're working at, but it is a handy trick. So I'm finishing off this second panel that I did the Brussels stitch upside down on, and I'm just whip stitching across to hold the last stitch in. But I have varied the size of the stitch as well, made it very slightly larger than in the last panel, because you can play around with sizes of stitches just the way you can play around with size of thread. And it's amazing the different look you get off things, just varying something small like a stitch, you know. So the next stitch we're going to do is one that we covered in the fourth video in the Lace Sampler series, and that is a double Brussels stitch. And the double Brussels stitch we're going to do all in this area here as a fill, and it's in fact it's 2 areas, because it's all the way across here, down here. You're going to have to start again filling in that side, And there's another little area in there. So that's a little bit of a, higher level challenge, obviously, than the sampler was, but it's going to help you so much to grow in confidence that you can navigate your way across areas. And of course, nets are very handy if you were doing a series of little small motifs, as they call them, designs, that you wanted netted areas in between. And you can choose what kind of net you want, but this is one way of doing netting in between motif areas. So if I'd had a flower here and another flower over there on a bigger motif, that netting, you would have to be able to do straight lines of netting across kind of more complicated shapes, and make decisions about how to get across the shape, how to do shapes like that's a little triangular shape that's completely cut off from the other shape and requires a different piece of thread, but should look around the same size as what's going on outside. So that's a nice little challenge for you to do. So that's double Brussels stitch, and it's a very detailed explanation of it in video 4 of the Irish Lace Sampler. And don't forget, when you're starting your little double Brussels stitch fill, to do your trick of holding the thread across to decide where your first row of stitches is, and then you're going to go across, and then as you go down to decide where to increase the row as the circle gets bigger. You can just hold the thread you're working with across, and it helps you sort of like a little guideline as you go down. Now you see there's my first row done in the double Brussels stitch, and all the rows are worked the same, but there's how I know how many stitches to create in the side, just using that as a little guideline before I do it. So increasing as I go down. So when you have all your double Brussels stitch bits done, you want to start thinking about where do you want to put the pops. These little guys, the little roundy things, and I covered those in part 5 of the sampler, Irish Lace Sampler series, and you can put them anywhere you want. I've put them, in the middle of petals and a couple of random ones around the place, but have fun, and it's up to you to decide where you want to put things. So go back, have a look at that video if you need to refresh yourself on how to do them. I'm going to do some pops on mine. Then when you're finished doing that, you're going to do a basic all the way around stitch for all your edges. This bit happens last, okay? So on video 6 you will find how to do that edging stitch, but this little special stitch is called a shell stitch, and when you're finished doing all this edging all the way around all the leaves and everything, I'll see you back here and I'll show you how to do the very last touch, which is that shell stitch around the edge. Have fun with the pops. I'm getting near the end of all this finishing stitch now. Have everything outlined in finishing stitch. Haven't put in my pops yet, which are those little things. And both the finishing stitch and the pop stitch, I might have said this already actually, But that was days ago because I've been working days on this bit. Both of them are covered in video 5 of the Irish Lace Sampler video, which goes into a lot more detail about all the techniques than I do on this video. We have everything done except this outliney picot sort of bit here, the shell stitch. We've done the finishing stitch all the way around everything, including all the inner shapes. So this shell stitch is done with a separate piece of thread. So we're just going to work our little loops all the way around the edge. The last time we did an edging, we did it as we went along, but we have all our edge done first. So let me give you a close-up of that shell stitch. And as you can see, it kind of goes, it's sort of a slightly sidewaysy thing, which has a series of little stitches which increase in size from about the halfway point of the loop up to reattach to your finishing edge. So I'll show you how to do those now. So it doesn't matter where on the design you start, but you're going to come in from the back, around the back of that kind of finishing edge for a few stitches, travel for a few stitches. This is just to attach the thread at the start. And this is why we're using a fairly thin needle to get through those very tight stitches. Now it doesn't really have a knot on the end of it, but I am going to make a knot. And then this bit here is going to be snipped off at the just finishing off stage. So if I can find the little hole that I want to go into here, it's the very edge of the stitch I'm going into. Let me see, can I get a good shot of that? That's a fastening loop I'm going to make. And make sure you don't lose your tail, because you'll lose the whole thread when you pull if you do. So I'm just keeping my finger on the tail. Now we're started. Okay, so I'm just turning this way up because I like sewing, pulling the thing downwards, you see. So what we're doing is we're going for whatever width we want our loop to be. I want it that kind of width where my fingernail is. So I won't say how many stitches because it's individual to your, what way you do your tension for your stitches. And we're going back into the edge. So I've done it as a Brussels stitch kind of a loop, and I'm going to go and make another little loop through. So this is kind of a Brussels stitch to the right, but we're sewing on top of that sort of doubled loop now. It's doubled until the midpoint kind of thing. So it's a bit different from the way we made a loop the last time. So you've got one stitch done. And I'm probably going to do 4 stitches for this size shell, but people sometimes do 3 and sometimes do 5, depending on what size they want their loops. So this one is going to be a very small stitch as well. Next one, bit bigger. This is why you can't really tell if you're going to do 4 or 5 stitches until you see what it looks like. I think that was 3, wasn't it? I think it's going to be a 4-stitch one, because you're going to leave a little tiny bit at the end so that you can make another loop. So that's it. That's a shell stitch. And it doesn't look like much on the first one, but if you keep making them the same size all the way around, it looks really pretty. And they are like little sort of periwinkle shells or something. You see natural shapes turning up a lot in lace things, particularly the Irish lace. There's a really close-in shot of my third shell stitch edging, and I've just gone back in for the very final stitch that starts the next loop. And I'll keep my finger on this to keep the other one in position, because I don't want it to pull too much. And I'm ready to start another loop now. So all the way around like that, and the challenge is to try and keep them all the same size, isn't it? But you can use your needle to judge the width and go on to the next thing with your needle. Okay, see you when we get back to the starting point. I'm very nearly finished now, but just another little tip before we do. You're not really supposed to wash lace before it comes off the backing, but if you find it's a bit grubby, and you know, if you're beginning lace, you're going to be reworking things a lot and trying things out and taking stitches out and re-sewing. I found I got away with washing it gently in carbolic soap, just soaking it for a short while, then taking it out of the soak and running it under the hot tap. And my backing, I made absolutely sure that my backing material, that the dye wasn't going to come out of that before I did it. But I just washed it like that gently before taking it off the backing, and it does remove any little stains. All finished, and this is the very exciting bit, although I love doing the shell stitch, I have to say. It's one of my favorites. But back in the Irish Lace Sampler project, I showed you how to take the backing off in detail. But of course, the first job is taking your tacking out from around the edging. And then we go in with a really sharp pointy scissors into the middle of our sandwich, don't we? And start separating the two sides of the sandwich. Like this. Because we want to get at those cordon stitches. And whether you do that with a scissors or a knife, you're getting in there and snipping all those stitches until that back bit comes away. And you can refer back to that video if you're not sure how to do that, because I won't be covering it in detail here, but I'll show you when I'm a bit of the way through. See how it looks as they start to come apart, so you apply gentle pressure and keep cutting carefully. Ta-da! We have the back off and all the couching stitches cut. And there's the couching, part of the couching stitches is still going through to the front. So we can pull some of it away. We might have to cut a few stitches away to get at the front. So take your time getting the front off. And then we'll do cleaning up any loose threads afterwards. And finally, after much work, we have our lovely piece of lace, which still looks a bit of a mess because we haven't got our all our couching stitches, leftovers, all picked out yet, and we haven't cut any tails or anything off the work. But it should look reasonably neat on the back, like this one, when you're finished. As you get better, it'll look neater, of course. So it just remains to say well done, very patient if you got this far, and it is quite an addictive thing to do, I have to say. So, and you will find so many uses for your lace in your other sewing projects as applique. You can frame your piece if you like. It looks really nice. This one I've taken it out of the frame, but you can have the design and the lace sampler you made in a little frame and have it looking like a very smart piece of sort of contemporary craft artwork. You can also put your work into either, tuck it into like a sewing journal, like the one that I have here, and keep it that way. You could put it on the cover of a sewing journal, as I've done with this one, or you could have a little photograph album that you keep all your pieces in. That this style, you can actually slip the piece down into it and put in a little tag saying the date, and you can track your progress in pieces and then take pieces out as you want to use them in other work. It's up to you, but I hope that you will go on to design your own pieces and have great fun doing so, both in the designing and in the sewing. Slán leat.